sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the M74 southbound at Junction 2A Fullerton Road should proceed with care due to emergency roadworks. Eastbound on the M48 is closed between Newhouse and Ost for maintenance with diversions. The M40 northbound exit at Junction 12 in Warwickshire is closed due to an accident. The M25 anti-clockwise in Kent is fully closed due to an overturned vehicle. The A38 westbound in Devon is down to one lane due to a broken down vehicle. And on the trains, cross-country services are suspended between Sheffield and Doncaster, and Great Western Railway reports disruptions between Carmarthen and Swansea. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Oh, can you tell me, please, about your time during the war? 50 bombing raids over Germany. Do you remember the first time you faced enemy fire?
Yes, very clearly. No one can tell you what it is like to be shot at. You have to experience it. And on my very first occasion, which was a raid on Hanover, we came under anti-aircraft fire. I have to tell you right from the outset that German anti-aircraft fire was very accurate, it was very lethal, and of course it was linked to radar, so they always knew where you were and where they expected you to be when the shells arrived. Well, we were naive, we were inexperienced, and as I say, nobody could tell you what it's going to be like. You have to experience it.
You must be very proud of what you did during the war and ultimately helping to save Britain from the Nazis.
Now, if you're looking for a hero, and I'm certainly not a hero, you must look at the boys that flew the heavy bombers, the Halifaxes and the Lancasters, because they flew much, much more slowly. Lowe did, I think, somewhere under 200 miles an hour.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Wednesday the 14th of May, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And are prisoners going to be released early? Well, criminals are set to walk free after just a third of their sentence as the government tackles overcrowded jails.
Put farmers first. That's the view of America's Agricultural Secretary, who tells our political editor, Christopher Hope, why we must support our rural workers.
You can't have true national security without food security.
Well, they're hiking taxes on these family farms. That's a big issue here.
That's right, and that's a problem. I mean,
are you worried about that?
100%.
Is Britain going to have a fat jabs revolution? Well, a top doctor says Britons could soon use weight loss drugs to fight disease and live longer.
And there's still disorder at the border. Britain's illegal migration crisis exposed by GB News' Patrick Christie. He speaks to people in France who are determined to cross the channel, come what may.
You'll get a job in the UK.
Refugee, I need paper, passport, you know. These people is long in Europe, like 5 years, 6 years, you don't have paper.
So you went to get in a boat today?
Yeah, yesterday.
And there was a problem yesterday, and there was a problem with the motor.
And conviction quashed. Peter Sullivan spent 38 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. His lawyer, Sarah Myatt, spoke outside court.
I am not angry. I am not bitter. I am simply anxious to return to my loved ones and family, as I've got to make the most of what is left of the existence I am granted in this world.
The ultimate police chase. A Russian man led police in Florida on a dramatic marine chase for over 1 hour after stealing a luxury yacht worth millions. He was eventually arrested when deputies boarded the boat. I would be not just bitter, I'd be enraged. 38 years in jail. That's his whole adult life is gone.
It's just unthinkable. We were talking earlier when he was jailed in 1987. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. The Berlin Wall was still there. Cold War. No mobile phones, no internet. I mean, what he's missed out on is just
and how he's going to have to try and adapt to this life, having been institutionalised for nearly 40 years. Shameful, really. And £1 million compensation, frankly, not enough.
Well, there's nothing you can do to restore those years. But we're going to be talking about prison reform in another way as well, because the government looks set to introduce a completely new type of sentencing where there'll be a minimum and a maximum sentence depending on how well you behave in prison. Could be a good thing?
Well, you could be out in with just serving a third of your sentence. How is that a good thing?
Yes, exactly. Well, we'd love to know what you think, so please do send your views and comments to gbnews.com/your say. But first of all, here's the news with Aaron.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you. Just after 9:30, our top stories. The Royal College of Psychiatrists says it cannot back the bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales in its current form. Kim Leadbitter's bill will return to the Commons on Friday when MPs will again debate proposed changes, with a vote in Parliament expected next month. However, the Royal College have withheld support, highlighting serious concerns about the safeguarding of people with mental illness. A similar bill proposal passed the first parliamentary hurdle in Scotland yesterday.
Yes, 70. No, 56. There was one abstention. The motion is therefore agreed.
It was introduced by the Liberal Democrat Liam MacArthur and passed by 70 votes to 56. It will now go through further parliamentary scrutiny before it can become law. He has hailed its passing as a landmark moment. Thousands more civil servants are set to be moved out of London as the government seeks to radically reform the state. Under plans announced today, the government will cut the number of civil servants working in London by 12,000 and shift jobs to a series of new regional campuses across the country. It's all part of the Labour government's plans to save money and shift government jobs elsewhere. It will see 11 offices in London close, including one of its largest Whitehall buildings, in a move that they hope will save £94 million a year by 2032. The US President has met Syria's interim leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, in Saudi Arabia on day 2 of his tour of the Middle East. He has been attending the Gulf Cooperation Council Summit in Riyadh, and that will conclude his visit to the kingdom. Yesterday, Donald Trump signed what he described as a record arms deal worth £107 billion with Saudi Arabia, the White House calling it the largest defence sales agreement in history. And speaking in the last few minutes, the US President says he wants a deal with Iran, although they must stop sponsoring terror, he said, and also for Arab countries to normalise relations with Israel. Now, following this, the US President will head off for the second leg of his whistle-stop tour to the Middle East. He's going to Qatar next. Now, the meeting with Syria's interim president came after Donald Trump announced the removal of all sanctions on Damascus, which were imposed on the government of the ousted leader Bashar al-Assad. And it is significant because Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda commander, he led rebels in overthrowing the Assad regime back in December. He remains a designated terrorist in the United States. Finally, Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi is in an induced coma after having the first phase of surgery on a serious abdominal injury. The Nigeria international underwent a procedure on Monday night, having suffered a serious injury when he collided with the post late on in their 2-2 draw with Leicester. Now, there's no suggestion the Nottingham Forest player's condition is life-threatening. It is understood the coma will help restrict his movement and regulate his heart rate. But he got several minutes of treatment on the pitch in a worrying period of play before being allowed to return to action. There's your headlines. I'll be back with more at 10.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, good morning. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates. I'm standing in today for Bev Turner.
So nearly 1,200 migrants have crossed the Channel since Sunday. Extraordinary in the very week when the Prime Minister, and of course, announced his crackdown on legal migration. Our very own Patrick Christie spent 24 hours at the epicentre of the illegal migration crisis in Calais.
Yes, this is the point where thousands of people make the journey in small boats to Britain every year. Let's take a look at this.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, OK. And how did you get here? It's a long way.
It's a long way, yes.
Did other countries, was Germany, Italy, Spain, no?
No. Turkey, Italy, and here.
And here?
Yes.
Do a lot of you have family in England?
Yes. London.
Yes.
He have family in London. He wants to go London. ايش كان عاد اخرى؟
قول له انه احنا نريد نروح نذهب الى لندن ايش هذه؟
Father, mother in London. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes, brother.
He want going.
And did they come from here on a boat?
Yeah. Yeah, on the bike.
It's very dangerous, though, the boat. And how did your family get to England?
12 years.
Like this, though? They came through and they came?
Yes. Before you go...
And do they have a house now? Do they
now you have house, you have passport, you have everything, my friend.
Well, that comes after the Prime Minister's pledge to crack down on net migration, warning that the UK risks becoming an island of strangers if action isn't taken. Well, Patrick has taken a look at one of the boats used to cross the Channel.
Very sturdy stuff, it seems. I'm not sure I'd fancy it on the high seas, but quite a soft bottom. So you've got the outboard motor here. The smell of gasoline. The smell of gasoline comes through.
So why don't the police, if actually it has access to it, why don't the French police puncture it?
Absolutely. Well, in one of the other clips that I was watching last night, Patrick was obviously driving past a river and sees one of these boats ready to go, empty, and he sees the gendarmerie drive past it and just drive off.
Yeah.
And he makes the comment, what on earth is Britain paying the hundreds of millions of pounds a year to the French authorities for every year if they're ignoring the problem?
And we've just granted Macron the privilege of a state visit.
Yeah.
He's coming in June or July.
I mean, the French do stop quite a few of the crossings. It's quite a high... Well, it's quite a high proportion. It's just there's so many. But smash the gangs. I mean, it's absurd. It's not going to happen if they know that as soon as they get to Britain, they're going to get housing, benefits, etc.
And we know that this government has got no clue about how to solve the crisis because we know they're now signing 5-year contracts with landlords, long-term contracts with hotels for these migrants because it's just going to go on and on because they haven't got a clue how to smash the gangs. Why didn't they give Rwanda a try?
Absolutely. And they say, the government keeps saying Rwanda didn't work. Well, it didn't work because it wasn't ever enacted and able to try.
And also, the Prime Minister says he is going to get tough and stop these ridiculous decisions allowing people to invoke their human rights to stay here, but he won't take us out of the European Court of Human Rights.
Absolutely. So it's impossible. And they keep saying, the deterrent effect won't work. But we know in the weeks leading up to the general election, we know there are people in Calais hanging on, not crossing, waiting to see if Labour did win the election because they knew then they'd be safe from being...
Well, they were doing thumbs up to Keir. They were thanking him.
Oh,
shocking.
So frustrating.
Now, moving on, to clear up space in our jails, prisoners, get this, are going to be released from as little as a third of the way through their sentences, but only if they behave well.
Well, the changes are designed to incentivise rehabilitation, but will they work?
Policing and crime commentator Danny Shaw joins us. Danny, they're chipping away at this all the time, aren't they? It used to be automatic release, 50% of your sentence, now 40%. Now there's talk in this review, which has been done by David Gauke, a former Tory cabinet minister, that if prisoners behave well, they could be out after just a third.
Yes, and I think it's very likely that David Gauke's recommendations, which I understand are going to be published next week, will be accepted by the Ministry of Justice. I mean, whether they're accepted in their entirety or not remains to be seen, but I think the thrust of them will, because David Gauke has been working very closely with Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary. And the reason that they've set up this review under David Gauke is because there simply aren't enough prison places. Remember those emergency release plans that had to be introduced last year, 40% of your sentence in custody and then you could be released. That was introduced. Thousands were released that way. Well, the long-term scenario is not good, even with a big prison building programme, which the government has pledged to do. And that's why they asked David Gauke to do this review to come up with some long-term fixes to keep the prison population under control. And this is the measure that he's proposed. For people on fixed sentences, determinate sentences, they would serve as little as 33% if they undertake rehabilitation activities, do education, training in prison, and if they behave well. If they don't, then it seems they could spend 40%, 50% of their time behind bars. But the detail remains to be seen.
Now, Danny, it is being billed as a crackdown on prison places, if you like. This is a way of freeing up prison places. But actually, if you look at the detail, it is quite a significant reform. At the moment, prisoners do get automatic release after a certain percentage of their sentence. But this would end that. It would give a minimum sentence and a maximum sentence. And the better the prisoner behaved in prison, the more they engaged with their education, the closer towards the minimum sentence they would spend. Now, there should be an advantage to this, surely. It is in everybody's interests that prisoners behave well in jail. They will only do that with an incentive. So actually, this may not result in shorter sentences at all. It's completely in the hands of the prisoner.
Well, there's nothing wrong with incentivising prisoners to behave well and undertake rehabilitation schemes and education programmes in prison. I absolutely agree with that. We don't have enough of it at the moment, and we don't have enough of those incentives at the moment. My problem with this is that if you're going to prison and you spend just a third of your time behind bars, it kind of really makes a bit of a mockery of the overall sentence that you're given. And I think it will lead to a lack of confidence in the system amongst victims and the wider public. If you're given a sentence of 9 years and you end up spending 3 behind bars, I mean, it just feels to me like that is ridiculous. It's not enough. You should have to spend at least half of your time behind bars. And that should be earned if you spend half your time behind bars. And if you don't, then it should be longer. And then the period when you're released, you should be strictly supervised. I mean, let's be honest, this is a measure that is being introduced or likely to be introduced because we have run out of prison places and also our probation service is overstretched. And so under these plans, the probation service is only really going to be managing offenders for about a third of their overall sentence as well. So there'll be laxer supervision for some offenders too. So overall, it's not a plan, I think, that will command confidence, although I understand the reasons why it's being potentially being introduced.
They're not doing it for the benefits of criminal justice, and they're certainly not doing it for the benefits of victim, Danny, are they? And one of the points about prison is to get undesirables, dishonest, violent criminals off our streets and safely locked up. And inevitably, some of the people who will be released after a third of their sentence will be undesirables who will doubtless offend again.
Yes, and we've seen that already with the early release scheme, Andrew. So many of those people who are released early are back behind bars, they're recalled to prison. The numbers of people in jail who've been recalled because of poor behaviour or reoffending outside is at record levels. That's one of the reasons we've got a crisis. I think the way to tackle the prison population crisis is to reduce the number of foreign national prisoners by really focusing intensively on agreements with those return countries to get them out of UK prisons and back to their home prisons. I don't think there's been enough focus on that. We also need investment in the court system to cut the number of remand prisoners, and we need to do something about the recall population as well. I don't actually think that cutting sentences so that you're serving a third behind bars is the way to tackle this crisis, and it certainly won't inspire confidence in the system.
Absolutely right. Danny, thanks for that. That's Danny Shaw, who is a policing and crime commentator. I think he's absolutely right.
Well, I don't, because I don't think this is what is being announced. They're not announcing lower sentences. They're announcing the end to automatic early release, and a judge will say, this is the minimum, this is the maximum, you've got to serve the minimum. Now, it remains to be seen whether that minimum will be lower than it is effectively now, but we don't know that. And actually, this is the end of automatic early release.
No, but they're saying a third. That's lower.
No.
That's around 40%.
No, at the moment, prisoners are released automatically at 40% unless they've behaved badly. They're completely shaking this up and saying there's going to be a minimum term and a maximum term, and depending on how well the prisoner behaves, depends on how much over their minimum term.
But I don't think a prisoner should ever be released after they've served a third of their sentence.
Well, it won't be a third of the sentence anymore, though. There'll be a minimum sentence, which they will serve 100% of, regardless, and then towards the maximum sentence. Now, it depends on how strict those sentences are as to whether this is a good thing or not. But we don't know that yet, and it's not a case you can just say, this means sentences will be lower. I don't know if it will. Depends on the judges.
Right, we'll see.
Anyway.
Now, straight ahead.
The biggest miscarriage of justice for a long time. Well, Peter Sullivan spent 38 years in jail for a murder he did not commit.
And up next, Donald Trump's top team warns Britain that we must put our farmers first. We all agree with that.
Absolutely. But first of all, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Some heavy downpours and gusty winds over the central Mediterranean thanks to a storm system over the next few days, particularly wet and windy on Thursday across Sicily. That heavy rain and those gusty winds will spread more widely across Italy and up towards parts of Croatia later this week. Some heavy showers too for Sardinia, northern parts of Spain. Generally dry, but on the cool and sunny side in Portugal. Sunny skies for Barcelona into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
This is the King's son using the King's court to sue the King's minister. Yes. Constitutionally, this is pretty rum, isn't it? Can you think of a previous historic example?
It's unprecedented. That word's often used with regards to Harry, but I do think he's shone his light into a bunch of nettles that we never go to. Why don't we even know how much royal security costs us? And by the way, if you put in a freedom of information, you won't get a result from it because they say that would be to imperil the people they're protecting. But the truth is, let's be honest, the Duke of Gloucester on a Sunday afternoon opening, I don't know, a leisure pool in Grimsby, or even, dare I say it, the Duchess of Edinburgh rocking up to the National Memorial Arboretum and doing a very good job. I refuse to believe that they are more in need of security than Prince Harry is.
They don't get it.
But they do. I'm sorry, they do get. Royals, when they're working, do get security.
If they're doing specific events, yes, there are security around the events. But you can see the Duke of Kent walking up St James's Street by himself.
Yes.
There isn't this.
And when they're working is the critical word there, because Harry has stepped back from all of his frontline royal duties. Right?
But once a prince, always a prince. You can't actually unpick
He's a prince emeritus.
Well, but both of you presumably believe in hereditary monarchy. And if you believe in hereditary monarchy, you've got to bear the cost.
Comes with a duty of service, which he set aside. It's not the job of the armed police to provide emotional support bodies to somebody who has abdicated their responsibilities as a member of the royal family and then is actually, instead of going into, he could have picked, there are all kinds of relatively anonymous lives that Harry could have chosen, right? He could have gone anywhere in the world. Yes. Instead, he has moved to California, where he and his wife continually try, with increasing lack of success, to cash in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Putting your farmers first and ensuring that the backbone of your country, you can't have true national security without food security.
Well, they're hiking taxes on these family farms. That's a big issue here.
That's right, and that's a problem. I mean,
are you worried about that?
100%.
Well, that was the US Secretary for Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, speaking to GB News, saying that she wants to put British farmers first.
And she celebrated the recent trade deal between Britain and America and urged the Prime Minister to offer farmers more support. Let's speak to our favourite farmer, Kelly Seaton. Kelly, morning to you. The Agriculture Minister in America was adamant that the decision to stick this tax on family farms, the inheritance tax, was threatening our national food supply.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes it a very unfair playing field because we are the only farming enterprise across the world. So when it comes to trading, we're the only country that is liable for this inheritance tax.
And the government is still arguing that it won't affect many farms, but I understand that it's predicted to affect 75% of farms over 50 hectares, which is basically all the decent-sized farms that are producing our food.
Yeah, absolutely. So a recent study from the AHDB, Agricultural Horticultural Development Board, suggested that it was more like 75% that would be affected rather than the 75% that wouldn't be affected, as per Rachel Reeves's estimates.
How, I mean, the Farmers' Union is fighting its corner, but are negotiations getting anywhere that you're aware of, Kelly?
Not that I know of. I think we're sitting tight for this 4-year term of the Labour government and hoping that the next government that comes in, it's a vote winner for them.
Yeah.
And how do you think this will play out alongside the trade deal that Britain's now done with the US? Is this just extra pressure on farmers to compete?
I actually see the trade deal in America as being a really exciting opportunity. The American population love British food. There's a real opportunity for the lamb market in the US. The US only produced 68,000 tonnes of lamb in their country, and they import 107,000 tonnes.
Kelly, I'm so sorry, we're going to have to leave it there. I do apologise, but thank you so much for coming on. And government have said that their commitments to farmers remain steadfast. Most farms won't have to pay this, and it's a fair and balanced approach.
Except we don't believe their figures.
Well, that's the figures, official figures. Here's the weather coming up now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For the vast majority, it is another sparkling day of spring sunshine out there. Feeling quite warm for many as well. There's the small chance for shower in the southwest. Bit of a gloomy start over parts of southeast Scotland and northeast England. This cloud producing a little bit of drizzle for a time as it just drifts southward. So it will cloud over a little bit across much of Yorkshire, eventually into Lincolnshire, perhaps the north of Norfolk by this afternoon. At the same time, cloud bubbling up. We've seen 1 or 2 heavy showers in the far southwest. Small chance of 1 or 2 more this afternoon. Quite warm in the sunshine though in the west. Temperatures not quite as high as yesterday, but in the south 23, 24. Feeling quite fresh though on some of these North Sea coasts where it may stay a bit misty and we will have that breeze from the North Sea. As I said, there is the chance for shower too, maybe even the odd thunderstorm over Dartmoor into parts of Cornwall, particularly by this afternoon. But for most places, it's dry and it's sunny. Quite a difference between west and east, though, temperature-wise. Those eastern coasts struggling to get into the teens, whereas in the west, well, we'll be in the high teens, maybe low 20s in 1 or 2 places. So yes, as we go through this evening, we're not going to see a great deal of change. That breeze, though, will still be blowing, bringing a cooler feel to eastern areas and just drift the mist and murk and low cloud back inland once more. So a bit of a drab start to tomorrow morning across central and eastern England and eastern Scotland. Many western areas staying dry and keeping clear skies through the night. Any of those showers this afternoon in the southwest, they'll be out of the way. And Thursday's a dry day again for the vast majority. Again, these eastern areas, that cloud could be thick enough for a bit of drizzling. It may take a little longer to clear, so a bit of a grey morning over parts of the Midlands and eastern England. It should disappear inland, but some of those coasts always likely to see the har and the fret come and go at times. And again, with the breeze from the North Sea, feeling pretty fresh on those eastern coasts. Not as warm as today further west, but still getting into the high teens.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report. Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Emergency roadworks restrict the M74 southbound at junction 2A Onslip Fullarton Road. Proceed with caution. The M48 eastbound is closed between junctions 2 and 1 Ost with diversions. The M1 southbound has 10-minute delays between junctions 2 and 1 in Greater London. The M25 anti-clockwise in Kent is shut due to an overturned vehicle, causing 30-minute delays. One lane is closed on the A38 westbound in Devon due to a broken-down vehicle. And on the trains, cross-country services face disruptions between Sheffield and Doncaster, while Great Western Railway is affected between Carmarthen and Swansea. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness.
That's wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GB News.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it.
Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Wednesday, the 14th of May. We're live across the United Kingdom. You're watching Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
So those prisoners are being released early. Criminals set to walk free after just a third of their sentence as part of the government's efforts to ease the overcrowded prison crisis.
And in some breaking news, Meghan Markle's popularity is apparently at an all-time low.
That YouGov polling coming less than 2 weeks after Prince Harry's bombshell BBC interview. Meanwhile, can you guess who the most popular members of the royal family are too? More details shortly.
Put farmers first. America's very own agricultural secretary tells our political editor why we should support our farmers.
You can't have true national security without food security.
Well, they're hiking taxes on these family farms. That's a big issue here.
That's right, and that's a problem. I mean,
are you worried about that?
100%.
I also spoke to Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader. She said that a Tory government will reverse any deal signed by Sir Keir Starmer and Ursula von der Leyen at their big summit on Brexit on Monday. Is this 4 more years of Brexit uncertainty?
And are we about to witness a fat jabs revolution? A top doctor says Britons could use weight loss drugs to fight disease and live longer.
And disorder at the border continues. Britain's illegal migration crisis exposed by GB News' very own Patrick Christie's as he spoke to people in France who are determined to get across the channel.
You'll get a job in the UK.
Refugee, you need paper, passport, you know. These people is long in Europe, like 5 years, 6 years, you don't have paper.
So you went to get in a boat today?
Yeah, yesterday.
And there was a problem yesterday, and there was a problem with the motor.
And conviction quashed. Peter Sullivan spent 38 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. His lawyer, Sarah Myatt, spoke outside court.
I am not angry.
I am not bitter. I am simply anxious to return to my loved ones and family, as I've got to make the most of what is left of the existence I am granted in this world.
This farming story is really interesting. The American Secretary for Agriculture telling Sir Keir Starmer to put British farmers first at the same time as agreeing a deal that actually could put some farmers, not all, but some farmers out of business.
Yeah, although Kelly Seaton, our favourite farmer, she thought there was great opportunities for British farmers because we, of course, can sell more lamb to America and more beef to America, but of course they can sell more here too. What do you think? Send your views, post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/you'll say. But first, here's the news with
Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. Just after 10 o'clock, our top stories. The US President Donald Trump has met Syria's interim leader, Ahmed al-Sharaa, in Saudi Arabia. It's on day 2 of his tour of the Middle East. He's been in the Gulf Summit, at a Gulf Summit in Riyadh. It concludes his visit to the kingdom. Yesterday, Trump signed what he described as a record arms deal worth £107 billion with Saudi Arabia, the White House calling it the largest defence sales agreement in history. Now, he is hoping to secure $1 trillion worth of investment into the US as part of this tour, which will include a trip to Qatar next. That's a little bit later today, and also the United Arab Emirates. Now, the meeting with Syria's President Ahmed al-Sharaa came after Donald Trump announced the removal of all sanctions on Damascus, which were imposed on the government of the ousted leader Bashar al-Assad. Trump says it's designed to give the country a chance at greatness. But the meeting was very significant because Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda commander, who led rebels in overthrowing the al-Assad regime in December, remains a designated terrorist in the United States. The Royal College of Psychiatrists has withdrawn its support for the bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales. It comes as a blow to Kim Leadbeater's bill, which will return to the Commons on Friday. MPs will again debate proposed changes to it, and there should be a vote in Parliament next month. However, the Royal College have withheld support, highlighting serious concerns about safeguarding of people with mental health illness. Now, a similar bill proposal passed the first parliamentary hurdle in Scotland yesterday.
Yes, 70. No, 56. There was one abstention. The motion is therefore agreed.
It was introduced by Liberal Democrat Liam MacArthur, and now will go through further phases of scrutiny before it can become law. And he has hailed it as a landmark moment.
Relief. I'm delighted, but also very conscious of the work that lies ahead. But today, undoubtedly, is an historic day for the Scottish Parliament. Third time of asking, it's taken steps to back the general principles of a bill on assisted dying, to allow the detailed scrutiny now to take place and the consideration of amendments. So I'm delighted.
Thousands more civil servants are set to be moved out of London as the government seeks to radically reform the state. Under plans announced, later the government will cut the number of workers in London by 12,000 and shift jobs to a series of new regional campuses across the country. It's all part of plans to save money and reduce the amount of jobs in the capital. 11 government office buildings in London will close, including one of the largest Westminster sites on Whitehall. It's hoped, the government at least thinks, will save £94 million a year by 2032. The British fashion brand Burberry's announced it could cut around 1,700 roles worldwide over the next 2 years as part of plans to reduce costs. The fashion brand has seen a slump in sales globally, and that has led to a £3 million annual loss. The US Secretary of Agriculture has told GB News she wants to put British farmers first. Speaking to Christopher Hope, Brooke Rollins celebrated the recent trade deal between the UK and the US, but urged the Prime Minister to offer farmers more support.
Putting your farmers first and ensuring that the backbone of your country You can't have true national security without food security.
Well, they're hiking taxes on these family farms. That's a big issue here.
That's right, and that's a problem. I mean,
are you worried about that?
100%.
The Menendez brothers, who were sentenced for the murder of their parents in 1989, have both received reduced terms after an appeal hearing considered new evidence. It means that Lyle and Eric Menendez, who are aged 57 and 54, could be granted parole as soon as next month. Finally, Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi is in an induced coma after having the first phase of surgery on a serious abdominal injury. The Nigeria international underwent a procedure, having suffered a serious injury during his team's 2-2 draw with Leicester on Sunday. No suggestion that his condition is life-threatening, and it's understood the coma will help restrict his movement and regulate his heart rate. It came after he collided with a post late on against Leicester and received several minutes of treatment on the pitch. And those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 10:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom live across the UK on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cakes, who is in for Bev Turner today.
I am, and you've been getting in touch with your views on gbnews.com, your say. Janet says, one farm affected is one too many. Protect British farms. What's the message coming out of America, even if it's not coming out from Downing Street? Absolutely. Janet Kay says, and this is about the proposed prison reforms, what about the victims of crime? This is a kick in the teeth for those who've suffered at the hands of any criminal. Build more prisons, not houses for illegal immigrants. Yeah, they're going to have to build more prisons. Yeah. I mean, the population...
The Tories failed on that, of course.
Absolutely. It's crazy that we could build these...
Party law and order.
That's right, that you can build these Nightingale hospitals in, well, not build, repurpose in weeks.
I know.
And yet, 10 years... can't build a prison.
And of course, part of the problem is people never want a prison in their area.
Well, no, absolutely. Like they don't want a nuclear power plant, and they don't want, you know, that's understandable. But
they had big majorities at various points. They should have just cracked on with it.
Absolutely.
But on the farmers thing, of course, the government still maintain that only 500 farms will be affected. Even 500 farms, Miriam, is too many.
And if there are 500 of the largest farms producing the most food each year, the trouble is we're not going to see, because obviously until the owner of the farm sadly dies, this policy doesn't come into effect. Right. So it's going to be a long time before we see the long-term consequences of this. But farmers are having to make decisions right now. And
are farmers going to step up their actions because they've been peacefully protesting so far? But if they withdraw food from the supermarket shelves, I mean, this American trader won't kick in for some months yet.
Yeah.
Are we going to have food shortages?
Well, they've said they don't want to do that because they want to keep the public, understandably, on side, but I think the public would understand. I think the sympathy for farmers is so strong.
Huge. Let us know what you think. Now, talking of... Sympathy. I've never had much sympathy for this particular person, but a new YouGov poll reveals Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, I'd bow or curtsy, popularity with the public has hit an all-time low.
And that. Prince Harry doesn't have much better ratings. He's reached his lowest level in 2 years. And joining us now is GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker.
Yes, not ideal, is it? So let's take a look at this graph, which hopefully we can put on the screen, of Meghan's favourability ratings with the British public. This poll was carried out just 3 or 4 days after Prince Harry's infamous BBC interview at the start of May. So this red line here, for those of you watching on TV, you can catch up on our social media channels if you're listening on the radio, shows her net positive rating. So the line at the bottom shows how popular she was before she left as a senior royal, and then how it dipped when they left in 2020, Harry and Meghan, and how it's continued a steady decline since. So at the moment, currently 20% of Britons only have a positive view of her. 65% see the Duchess negatively. Of course, in the last few months, she has relaunched her Instagram to try and rebrand herself. She's launched her own lifestyle business as ever. And of course, she's done that Netflix series with Love, Meghan, which did have mixed reviews. Some people just liked it as an easy watch. A lot of people clearly thought it wasn't great and was painting this picture of Meghan, which wasn't perhaps the truth. For example, wasn't filmed in her own kitchen.
Ridiculous.
Meanwhile, Harry, he's not doing very well either. As I said, it happened. Poll was conducted just a couple of days after that BBC interview, where the tracker found only 27% of Britons have a positive view of him, 63 a negative view.
Just to remind people, Cameron, in the BBC interview, this is where he raged about the decision of the courts to not allow the taxpayer to pick up the bill for his protection when he's here, unless he's on official royal duties.
Yes, so
he's not officially a royal anymore. That's going to be very, very rarely.
Yeah, absolutely. So he lost his appeal over his security case, and just a couple of hours after, he sat down with the BBC, basically saying it was incredibly unfair in his opinion, and that the state is basically out to get him, the institution is out to get him as well. Whether he will appeal to the Supreme Court, we're not so sure, but of course it was a bit of a rant, and also it's the trust with the senior royals, which again has been eroded here, because any olive branch which came...
And in that interview was the most shocking part for me, when he said on air, I don't know how long my father's got. Unbelievable that a son would speak about his father's mortality in that way.
Well, absolutely, and I think a lot of people are pointing to the fact that he probably doesn't know the prognosis of the king. None of us do, but considering it's the king's son, that is quite speaking volumes, isn't it? Let's take a look at the popularity of the royal family in general, the second clip we've got for you, which shows perhaps the Prince and Princess of Wales are the most popular members of the royal family.
Who'd have thought
with the public. Who knew? Yes, 75%, three-quarters of Brits have a positive opinion of the heir to the throne, Prince William. Good. 72% have a favourability towards our future queen, the Princess of Wales. Interestingly, number 3, hardest working royal, Princess Anne, follows by the king.
Good for her, because she really is a indomitable spirit, isn't she?
Yeah.
She really is.
She's a kind of lady who you feel will go on and on forever, and will still be riding horses when she's 100.
Absolutely.
I guess Meghan and Harry are grateful for Prince Andrew, because I imagine he's even less popular.
And you can see Prince Andrew right at the bottom, and Meghan just above Prince Andrew.
She's only just above.
She's only just above Prince Andrew.
Do you not get the sense, though? I mean, obviously they've made themselves unpopular for all sorts of reasons. But do you not get the sense that there are some people in this country who enjoy a little bit too much constantly criticising Harry and Meghan when they don't even live here anymore? Well, why are you polling this? They're not up for election. Do we need an opinion poll on Meghan Markle's popularity? Is this just another way of having a dig at her?
I mean, it is an interesting point, because, of course, some of these royals on the poll are not working members of the royal family, so therefore, do we actually care?
They're not members of public interest,
They are, I suppose, but look, the public are interested.
He's the Duke and they are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and he rages on about
But we treat this like a soap opera, and it's not. It's real people's lives, and you can think what you want, but should it be headline news?
I think they are completely appalling.
Prince Harry still legally 5th and 9th of the throne as well.
There is that.
Well, I don't think he's ever going to become king, but...
I hope not.
Who knows? Anyway...
That'll make her queen.
Somebody who's hoping to become Prime Minister is the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch. She's vowed to reverse any Brexit rollbacks implemented by Keir Starmer's government.
She's been speaking to GBNews, in which she issued a stark warning about Labour's negotiating capabilities. Let's have a listen.
If Keir Starmer starts rowing back on the instruction that the country gave us on Brexit, that we will reverse the changes he made. If he starts new deals on free movement, we already have a huge immigration problem at the moment. We need to bring immigration down. If he does anything that brings free movement through the back door, we will reverse it. Same if he starts paying new money to the EU. We cannot afford it, for example. There are a lot of things which Keir Starmer needs to make sure he does in the national interest.
Well, joining us now is the GBNews political editor, Christopher Hope. Good morning, Christopher. An interesting interview there you did with Kemi Badenoch. What were the kind of outstanding points that she made?
Well, that's the point. I mean, international news is coming at us quite quickly at the moment, Andrew and Miriam. We've had that deal with India, a trade deal with America. There's obviously talks tomorrow, about ending the Ukraine war between Putin and of course, Zelensky, and maybe Donald Trump involved too. And additional to that, this weekend is a huge weekend about people who care about the Brexit outcome from 2016. Now, there's a big summit on Monday with Ursula von der Leyen, who's the European Union president, and Antonio Costa, who is the president of the European Council, and, of course, Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister. That is being billed as a Brexit reset summit. Up for grabs will be access to the UK fishing waters by French and Spanish trawlers? And will we, and if we do, what will we get in return, trade that for? That's the question. The PM is understood to believe that he wants to get a good deal on defence, a defence compact and agreement for defence, so we can get more jobs and defence jobs, bidding for contracts with the European Union and work more closely. Critics say we have NATO, that's our defence arrangement with the continent. We don't need the EU to have a shadow NATO body. That's a big debate. But what's happening so far, 3 days out from that, is the entire shadow cabinet have signed an agreement that anything that weakens Brexit, you heard there from Kevin Badenoch, the Tory leader, telling us last night, anything that weakens Brexit, this Tory group, if they form the next government, will reverse it as soon as they get into power in 2029. That, to me, shows how Brexit is never going to end. I mean, it's 4 more years of uncertainty. It may even undermine Keir Starmer trying to get a good deal for the country, given he's going to try and get, in his version, a better Brexit deal. The government's red lines are we're not going to go back to the single market, customs union or freedom of movement. But even those lines could get eroded slightly if we do a freedom of movement deal for 18 to 30-year-olds, for young people to go backwards and forwards between the EU and UK to find work and the like. So lots to play for. Brexit is about to be a very, very big talking point again this weekend, and the Tories have got in there first.
All right, that's Christopher Hope. Thanks for that, who's done that interview with Kemi Badenoch. And fishing rights is going to become another big flashpoint, I predict, don't you?
It was one of the main reasons that it took so long to negotiate Brexit in the first place. It's very emotive as well. Tiny percentage of our GDP, but really, really emotive, like farming.
And you think people like Nigel Farage has got represents a fishing town? That's
a very good point. Yes, it will be big news.
Yeah.
Well, time for our current giveaway, which is the biggest to date, and your chance to win a motorhome worth over £67,000 and £5,000 in tax-free cash.
One lucky viewer will win it all. That winner could be you. Here's all the details you need.
Great Britain is ready for you to explore this summer, and there's still plenty of time to grab this fabulous family motorhome. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, the Elnag Baron 560 comfortably sleeps 4, has integrated bathroom and kitchen spaces, and plenty of storage for all of the things you need to bring along on your next adventure. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that anywhere you visit in your brand new motorhome is done in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, coming up next, find out where more than 10,000 civil servants are being relocated as Sir Keir Starmer orders them out of London.
Could he order them to go to work? Order them into the office? That would make a change, wouldn't it?
Why does it matter where the office is if you're working from home?
Exactly. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
What this allows teachers to do is to divide the children into groups so they can be taught as in groups round a table, 3 or 4 tables in the classroom. Now, much more effective than that is to have a teacher at the front of the class and the children facing the teacher. It's called whole class teaching. It's what they do in the Asia Pacific. Now, if we don't have so many support staff, teaching assistants, schools would be forced to have more old-fashioned teacher at the front style teaching. So actually that will raise standards because we know we're already about 3 years behind the Asia-Pacific countries. So going back to more traditional teacher-led teaching, having fewer classroom assistants, will actually raise standards. But don't get me wrong on this, Andrew. Of course, on an individual basis, some children need support staff. So I'm not trying to rubbish support staff. There were some great support staff, but we've got too many. Therefore, we need to work within the existing budget. And to be fair to the government, and we're not party political in any way, we're not either right or left. We would say, as far as the government is concerned, they've said that if there is a bigger pay rise than the 2.8%, still 2.6%, which is inflation, it'll have to be paid from within the current budget. So the government needs to stick to that. They can pay within the current budget, but you tell that to the teacher unions, and of course they won't want to believe that. They will say, no, we need more money. But if you go to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, they will tell you that since 1953, going back to the 50s, we've increased expenditure on education by 900% in real terms. Staggering, I know. And we haven't improved standards. So the success of the teaching profession is not about money. It's about the quality of the teachers. So we should pay good teachers more. I wouldn't pay mediocre teachers more. I would pay good teachers more. So they have got a case, but we could do it within the existing budget.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom, and we're joined now by journalist and broadcaster Mike Parry and former Labour MP Stephen Pound in the studio to discuss all today's headlines. And of course, our very own Patrick Christys has been in Calais yesterday, and we're
doing great work.
And we're going to have a look at a couple of the clips that he took before we discuss them.
If I said to you, look, we don't have enough houses in England, would that stop you coming to England?
Okay. Maybe I come back in my country and I change in another country after.
Yeah, maybe you try another country if you realise that we can't afford England. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is going to sound awful to people who are just watching. I don't mean any disrespect to anyone who's here, but the smell is absolutely overpowering. You've got people on top of each other.
Oh, so Stephen Pound and Mike Parry. I'm glad he mentioned what he mentioned, tents there, because of course they don't stay in hotels in Calais, do they?
No, of course not.
By the British taxpayer.
No,
they have to stay in tents and lump
of course, and it's costing us £4 million a day.
Well, they're also not claiming asylum in Calais, are they?
Sorry,
they're not claiming asylum. That's the difference to Britain.
They're not claiming asylum in Calais because they come here. They know we're a much softer touch.
We are a soft
£4 million a day. Can I just link this with another story? Reeves created perfect storm as unemployment hits 4-year high, because in my view, £4 million a day is what we're paying out to accommodate people coming across the English Channel.
You just put them in hotels?
To put them in hotels, that's what I'm saying. So Rachel Reeves has got to raise money to put people in those hotels at £4 million a day, and yet I'm talking to the man who runs my local pub saying we're on the brink. We're on the brink of closing because of the extra taxes that have been put on, business rates, minimum wage increase, having to pay more national insurance, and having to take on fewer bar staff, which means they can serve fewer customers. Businesses in this country are on the brink, and it's all linked to the fact that she's putting up taxes to pay for things like us accommodating migrants in this country.
Mike, that's a completely false corollary. Look,
it is not false, Stephen.
Look, hang on a second. Let's get a couple of things straight. Firstly, if the economy is in such dire straits, why on earth are people risking their lives to get here? And secondly,
because we just add to our national debt in order to pay benefits.
All we're reading in the paper today is about a massive jobs crisis in the care sector. We don't have enough people working. There are more job vacancies in the care sector than ever before.
But that's a completely flawed policy.
It is, because we gave out 150,000 social care work visas, and it reduced the vacancy rate by 21.
When you say we, you mean the previous Conservative government, because that was...
The government, over the past 2 years, reduced the vacancy rate by just 21,000 jobs. You cannot claim that those social care work visas result in more care workers.
Exactly.
They don't.
Believe me, they do. Not only because I'm not just talking about the primary one. Every care worker comes here then used to have the right to actually bring their relatives in. I used to have cases where somebody was working in a care home and they bring in 14 cousins, completely legally under the previous government's legislation. That has changed.
Well, by the previous government. But I mean, what is Labour doing? What is Labour doing?
Exactly. Labour stopped it. They cancelled it. Hang on a second. They introduced an English language test for a stop, which it should have been done flipping years ago, and they've obviously cut down the number of people.
So they're going to test someone's English when they get off the boat, are they?
Hang on a second.
Your English isn't good enough. Is that what they're going to do?
Sorry, if they want to apply for British citizenship, then they have to actually subscribe to British values and speak the language.
That will never happen.
Is that too... I'm sorry, it is happening.
We know it will never happen. I mean, look, Starmer wants to introduce this system now to allow more people under the age of 30 or even up to 40 to come in from Europe. How many of those are care workers? It's a completely flawed system that we won't pay care workers, but we will open the doors again to allow more people to come to this country.
The Erasmus scheme is not remotely comparable. These are students, and it's a reciprocal scheme. Our people go to Italy, Italian
students at 28, 29, 27. How many?
Exactly.
They're not really
Exactly, of course they're not. They're young people.
What we're talking about is this reciprocal... I mean, come on, there's people out there trying to...
Free movement of labour by the back door, Stephen, and you know it.
Millions of people are enjoying a sunny day, listen, and we're rowing about something that ultimately, surely we can all agree on a few basics.
And also, Stephen, it's dishonest because if, say, 150,000 come through this scheme, they're not going on the migration figures. They're being kept off the books.
And they're not entitled to any benefits. They cannot claim anything here. They cannot claim accommodation.
They go straight into the black market.
Hang on. They cannot go to the National Health Service. They cannot apply for anything.
Many of these...
And then they go back to their country.
How many of these young men on these dinghies coming over, sometimes 50, 60, 70 people on the same dinghy, how many of them are contributing to our economy?
But, Mike, there's a different... It is a different argument to the Erasmus scheme. However, the Erasmus scheme is not totally reciprocal because there's a strong advantage for people in other European countries to come here to learn English. Because English is the global language.
Absolutely.
It's not the case that the same number of British students will go back.
And are we going to extend this to every single member of the European Union, all 27 countries? That's a lot of 18 to 30-year-olds, isn't it?
You see lots of people from Liverpool and Birmingham saying, oh, I'm off to Naples or Florence because I want to work there. It just doesn't happen.
No.
Everybody comes here for all the advantages you've just outlined, including free use of the National Health Service.
Well, hang on a second.
Which is amazing.
Mike, I mean... I don't remember Al Wiedersehen Pet, which is about a whole load of Geordie brickies going to work in Germany.
Yes.
People have always worked across borders.
Come off it. Al Wiedersehen
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
But I think the point is,
it was a drama.
Talk about clutching at straws. Al Wiedersehen Pet proves that the transfer of labour in Europe is working.
I'm sorry, what it proves is that it's been going on for donkeys.
Yes, but it's the scale, isn't it? And I think
that's where we agree.
Exactly. But the problem is...
You and Keir Starmer are on the same page here.
The Keir Starmer made a speech that sounded as though he's understood the problem, that on paper sounded like they intended to reform the immigration system.
They won't.
But if you dig through the detail, for example, the reforms on indefinite leave to remain don't apply to people already here.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make the blindest bit of difference to the hundreds of thousands of people coming. So
absolutely. And by the way, what about the extra benefits we're having to pay now to the 100,000 people who are now on the dole because of the economic policies of Rachel Reeves, who is economically illiterate?
Miriam has made a very, very salient and important point there. The people who are over here at the present time, they need to remain here and actually to actually be validated and have their positions sorted out, legalised, but we turn the tap off now. The people who are here at the moment, we need them in the care sector because they are in work and contributing.
Most of them are not working. The vast majority of visas are not working. They're not. They're mostly dependents and students. A tiny minority are working.
Totally agree.
That's what facts show. Anyway.
Yes.
Let's not confuse this with facts.
Gentlemen, you will be back. You will be back. But first, we're going to get some headlines now with Aaron Armstrong.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Let's get you up to date with the headlines. The US President Donald Trump has met Syria's interim leader Ahmed al-Sharaa in Saudi Arabia. It's part of day 2 of his tour of the Middle East. It comes after he announced the lifting of sanctions on Damascus yesterday. Now, Trump's been attending a summit in Riyadh. It concludes his visit to the kingdom. He'll then head to Qatar for the second stop of this 4-day trip. Speaking in the past hour, the US president has said he wants a deal with Iran, although they must stop, in his words, sponsoring terror. And he's called for Arab countries to normalise relations with Israel. Now, the meeting with Syria's president is significant because Ahmed al-Sharaa is a former al-Qaeda commander who led rebels in overthrowing the al-Assad regime back in December. He remains a designated terrorist in the US. As I said, sanctions to be lifted on Damascus announced by Donald Trump yesterday, and he's off to Qatar later today. The Royal College of Psychiatrists has withdrawn its support for the bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales. Kim Leadbeater's bill will return to the Commons on Friday, when MPs will again debate proposed changes, with a vote in Parliament expected next month. However, the Royal College of Psychiatrists have withheld support, highlighting serious concerns about its ability to safeguard people with mental illness. Now, a similar bill proposal passed the first parliamentary hurdle in Scotland yesterday.
Yes, 70. No, 56. There was one abstention. The motion is therefore agreed.
It was introduced by the man in your picture there, the Liberal Democrat Liam MacArthur, and will now go through further phases of parliamentary scrutiny before it can become law. Thousands more civil servants are set to be moved out of London as the government continues its cost-cutting drive. The government says it's to radically reform the state. These plans, which will remove some 12,000 workers from London and redistribute them to regional campuses across the country. 11 of its biggest buildings in Whitehall will close, including one of its largest sites. It's expected to save £94 million a year by 2030. The British fashion brand Burberry's announced it could cut around 1,700 jobs worldwide over the next 2 years. The fashion brand has seen a slump in sales around the world. It has led to a £3 million loss. The move is in an effort to try to reduce its global costs. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at the top of the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets. The pound buys you $1.33, 1.18 euros. The price of gold, £2,421.94 per ounce. The FTSE 100 currently trading at 8,594 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Well, up next, as the British Army isn't big enough to fill out Wembley Stadium, is it time we increase the amount of personnel with all the growing threats around us?
This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Morning, thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For the vast majority, it is another sparkling day of spring sunshine out there. Feeling quite warm for many as well. There's the small chance for shower in the southwest. Bit of a gloomy start over parts of southeast Scotland and northeast England. This cloud producing a little bit of drizzle for a time as it just drifts southward. So it will cloud over a little bit across much of Yorkshire, eventually into Lincolnshire, perhaps the north of Norfolk by this afternoon. At the same time, cloud bubbling up. We've seen 1 or 2 heavy showers in the far southwest. Small chance of 1 or 2 more this afternoon. Quite warm in the sunshine though in the west. Temperatures not quite as high as yesterday, but in the south 23, 24. Feeling quite fresh though on some of these North Sea coasts where it may stay a bit misty and we will have that breeze from the North Sea. As I said, there is the chance for shower too, maybe even the odd thunderstorm over Dartmoor into parts of Cornwall, particularly by this afternoon. But for most places, it's dry and it's sunny. Quite a difference between west and east, though, temperature-wise. Those eastern coasts struggling to get into the teens, whereas in the west, well, we'll be in the high teens, maybe low 20s in one or two places. So yes, as we go through this evening, we're not going to see a great deal of change. That breeze, though, will still be blowing, bringing a cooler feel to eastern areas and just drift the mist and murk and low cloud back inland once more. So a bit of a drab start to tomorrow morning across central and eastern England and eastern Scotland. Many western areas staying dry and keeping clear skies through the night. Any of those showers this afternoon in the southwest, they'll be out of the way. And Thursday's a dry day again for the vast majority. Again, these eastern areas, that cloud could be thick enough for a bit of drizzling. It may take a little longer to clear, so a bit of a grey morning over parts of the Midlands and eastern England. It should disappear inland, but some of those coasts always likely to see the har and the fret come and go at times. And again, with the breeze from the North Sea, feeling pretty fresh on those eastern coasts. Not as warm as today further west, but still getting into the high teens.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Traffic is restricted on the M74 southbound at Junction 2A due to emergency roadworks. Drivers should exercise caution. The M48 eastbound between Junction 2 Newhouse and Junction 1 Ost has maintenance work with the bridge closed and diversions in place. In Devon, one lane is closed on the A38 westbound between junctions with the A3121 and the A374 due to a broken down vehicle. Motorists should expect minor delays. And on the trains, there is disruption between Sheffield and Doncaster on cross-country services and between Carmarthen and Swansea on Great Western Railway. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It is 10:38. You're watching Britain's Newsroom.
So, Britain's received a horrifying nuclear threat from Russia that's put the UK, they say, top of their list to attack in the event of another world war.
And obviously, it's a huge concern for our military, which has reduced substantially in number over the years.
So in 1940, during the Second World War, the numbers in uniform peaked at 3 million.
But by 1950, it had fallen to 447,000. And in 2020, it was 153,000.
Now it's only 75,000. So with Russia posing that military threat today, see what they're doing in Ukraine, after all, on our European doorstep, we're debating, should we now really substantially increase spending and expanding our military?
Well, to debate this with us, we're joined by former British Army officer and Conservative MP Tobias Ellwood and Fiona Lally, the campaigns coordinator at the Revolutionary Communist Party. Good morning, both of you. Thank you for joining us. Tobias, let's start with you. There has been a lot of discussion about this topic recently. Keir Starmer committing to spending more money on defence. But the big question is, how should we be spending that money? Do we need more infantry? Do we need more technology? Where should the balance lie in modern warfare?
I think you asked a very important question. Few would disagree that our world is getting more dangerous, not less. State-on-state aggression is back. Threats are very much growing, and we feel more vulnerable. You know, events continue to move very fast, and I'm afraid in the wrong direction. We're seeing America dial back from its security commitments in Europe. Trump bizarrely, increasingly aligning America with Russia, not Ukraine. And as you implied, we are seeing no change in Putin's ambitions to expand Russia's influence well beyond Ukraine. So a wider conflict in Europe cannot be ruled out. Are we doing enough to prepare for these uncertain times? No, not yet. And many of us have argued, in fact, we should be doing much, much more to bolster conventional forces, air, land and sea, but also to upgrade all of society, to improve all of our resilience, given the kinds of threats that we're about to face. You know, we've had it easy since the 1990s, I would say, since the end of the Cold War, but those days are over. And the character of conflict, this is the important piece, has changed considerably thanks to advances in technology. It's very simple to attack us from afar and cause huge economic harm and social disruption. clipping our undersea cables, for example, cyber attacks. We have a dated model of how to keep Britain safe, and it is going to be addressed in the government's forthcoming defence review. But we not only need to bolster conventional forces, as your question implies, and improve our stockpiles of weapons, but we need more AI specialists, drone operators, cyber analysts, marine experts to guard those undersea cables. This is an all-of-society approach. Everybody must be involved to bolster our readiness and resistance. Otherwise, I can predict our vulnerability will be exploited by our adversaries.
All right, let's bring Fiona into the conversation. Fiona, do you agree with that? Our army is at a level not seen since the Crimean War.
Sure. I mean, the facts are the facts. But we spoke about the world becoming more dangerous. It is becoming more dangerous. The biggest danger to young people and working class people in Britain is the current Labour government and all of the austerity that the previous Tory government implemented. And, you know, Tobias was talking about everyone getting involved to boost the British military. I think that's delusional. I don't think it's going to happen. First of all, when politicians talk about boosting the military, what they're talking about is boosting British imperialism's ability to exploit millions of people all over the world. That only benefits rich people. That doesn't benefit young people. That doesn't benefit working class people in Britain. So no one's going to sign up to do this. And
but Fiona, you're a member of the Communist Party, and the thing that characterises communist states is the amount of money they spend on the military to the detriment of the people of that country. So are you not a communist?
No, I am a communist. What you've described is wrong. But yeah, in this
Hang on, the USSR, 3 million troops in the 1950s, North Korea, 1.5 million troops, China, 2 million troops. These are communist countries.
If you want to have a discussion about the USSR and North Korea and all that, invite me on another time. We're here to discuss the fact that the British military is in a weak state. And you know why you can't get people to sign up for it? It's because young people don't believe any of the propaganda, because the British army, imperialism, that whole system has been exposed in the eyes of millions of young people. So no, they don't want to sign up to join into it because they don't buy into the idea that it does defend them, because who is actually attacking them and their living standards right now? It's Keir Starmer, it's austerity. You know, I saw a poll that showed 20 years ago, 41% of Gen Z were proud of Britain. Sorry, 80% of Gen Z 20 years ago were proud to be British, were proud of Britain. Whereas today, that has dropped to 41%. What has happened in 20 years? The Iraq War, Afghanistan, Tory austerity, and now a Labour government. No wonder young people don't buy into any of this nonsense. And it's because of people like Tobias. And now you come on TV and say we need everyone to get behind the British army.
Let's bring Tobias in here. Tobias, even if we were to massively increase spending on conventional defence spending, a bigger army, would young people enlist if there was a military conflict? Do you think Gen Z would be willing to fight for king and country?
Yes, I do. And there was a report in The Telegraph only a few days ago, actually polling Gen Z who are concerned about the threats coming over the horizon. And we can talk about austerity, and absolutely right with Iran and with Iraq and Afghanistan, how that has skewered people's views. Ultimately, you cannot deny that Russia is now a threat to Britain. Every single day we are subject to cyber attacks. Every single day we are subject to IP theft. We are subject to even drone attacks as well. And we're going to see clipping of the undersea cables too. They are trying to cause economic harm, to sow political discord. That's what they're doing today. Russia is at war with Britain, but it's deniable because it's grey zone. So it isn't the army. I make that really clear. It's not the military itself. It's an all-of-society capability of increasing our defence posture. And people are starting to feel it. Whatever happened with the tube breakdown yesterday, whatever happened at Heathrow, these are the sort of vulnerabilities that we need to bolster and protect our society. And so when I call for investment in our defence and security, it isn't specifically the Army, the Air Force, the Navy. It's our capability to look after our society because we are so vulnerable, but more importantly, because threats are growing. And you can argue about internal domestic politics. When threats are growing, it requires all of Britain to lean in, as we've done in the past, hesitantly though at first, to say we're going to stand up and we're going to be firm and we're going to defend Britain. And that's what I'm seeing in the younger generation today.
Fiona, respond.
There is no all of Britain. There's you guys and there's everyone else, right? If Putin is a threat to the working class in Britain, I don't trust Keir Starmer, I don't trust David Lammy, I don't trust the defence companies, I don't trust the billionaires, I don't trust the establishment as people who are going to defend the working class in Britain.
Well,
in fact, Keir Starmer's a gangster, Putin's a gangster, and they've got more in common with each other than Keir Starmer has in common with me.
Okay,
you talk
so
about
you're talking
economic harm. You talk about economic harm and sowing political discord. Keir Starmer is doing that right now. He's doing that every single day. Political discord. He just did an outrageous speech quoting Enoch Powell.
Fiona, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. But
they
Fiona,
are creating misery.
Fiona, I'm afraid we will get misery from our producers if we don't bring this to an end. So, Fiona, Tobias, thank you so much for joining us for that lively discussion.
Yeah, she argues her corner in an interesting way, does she not?
Well, indeed. Coming up next, in the biggest miscarriage of justice ever, the man wrongly jailed for murder says he's not angry or bitter.
How is he not?
Incredible.
First, if you're in search of some elusive holiday sun, here's the forecast of some of our top European destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Some heavy downpours and gusty winds over the central Mediterranean thanks to a storm system over the next few days, particularly wet and windy on Thursday across Sicily. That heavy rain and those gusty winds will spread more widely across Italy and up towards parts of Croatia later this week. Some heavy showers too for Sardinia, northern parts of Spain. Generally dry, but on the cool and sunny side in Portugal. Sunny skies for Barcelona into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day.
bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It is 10 to 11 and you're watching Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Now, it's completely shocking. Peter Sullivan spent almost 40 years locked up for a murder he didn't commit. He's been freed after his conviction was quashed.
Well, he is now 68 and was found guilty of murdering Diane Sindel in 1986, but new evidence has shown he didn't commit the crime.
And in a remarkable statement, he says he's neither angry or bitter about his imprisonment.
Well, we're now joined by human rights lawyer David Haig to discuss this.
Actually, it's not David Haig. We're talking to Harjap Bansinghar. Harjap,
apologies.
How are you? We got you mixed
Mistaken
up.
identity.
Yeah. Harjap,
no, not quite David.
Good morning. First of all, I'm astonished how graceful he's been about this, because he says he's not bitter or angry. I'd be raging. His entire adult life has been thrown away. And the compensation package agreed for him, we're talking £1 million. How does that go anywhere near compensating what he's lost?
Andrew, I agree with you. I read his statement and it was full of grace, full of understanding, full of empathy for the victim's family. You're quite right. Perhaps someone like ourselves would be raging, would be fuming, and loss of time. It's the one thing money can't buy. I mean, if you could offer me £5 million and say to me, Harjap, give me back my 20 years of my life, and I couldn't. And so the compensation is neither here or there. It's not going to help him. He's 68 now. God knows how many years he has left to live. He won't get the best years of his life back. But the fact is, it just shows that there is, the evidence back in the days wasn't reliable enough. And perhaps, let's just say, if there'd been a stricter penalty, and say we'd had the death penalty for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we would have killed the wrong person.
Yeah.
And he hasn't done anything for this. So advocates of the death penalty, as much as they say that some crimes deserve death, but you've got to realise that some convictions, maybe a fair few, aren't secured on the best evidence. And that juries and judges are human. They're not fail-proof. It's not a fail-proof system. And there are people in jails languishing in there who perhaps are innocent of the crimes they've been convicted of.
And they wouldn't let him come out any earlier, Harjap, because he refused to say he'd committed the murder. If he'd said, I'd committed the murder, he possibly could have come out 15 years ago. How can that be right?
It's because he didn't do it, and they thought he had no remorse or wasn't repenting, or he was being stubborn, or he was in denial, when in fact he was telling the truth. And so the system is flawed in that respect. I mean, they refused his request a couple of times to test the DNA evidence that was there. And, that's shocking in itself. The fact is, this guy is innocent. There was not, the evidence that was presented was not secure enough. Also, they said that he'd signed a confession, but now we don't know under what circumstances that confession was signed. Was it signed under duress? He had no legal, there was questions about lack of legal representation at the time. And, these sort of things need to be taken into account. But once again, it shows that our system is not fail-proof. And ultimately, a jury and a judge are made up of human beings. They can get stuff wrong. But in such positions, if you get things wrong, you really are playing with people's lives.
Harjap Singh, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much for joining us to discuss this extraordinary case. We're going to have to go to the weather now.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day out there for the vast majority. A bit more cloud over parts of the east, and it's quite cool on North Sea coasts. And we're seeing 1 or 2 showers this afternoon over southwest England, close to this area of low pressure. But that is pulling away. High pressure is the dominant force, bringing a lot of dry and sunny weather, not just today, but for the rest of this week. Now, the winds coming down from the north, these North Sea coasts feeling a bit chilly, and it has been quite a gloomy start over North northeast England, and will continue to feed in quite a bit of cloud over parts of South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, and all the while on these North Sea coasts, the risk of low cloud. On the coast itself, temperatures struggling to 10 or 11 degrees. Further west, though, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant as we see temperatures getting into the low 20s. One or two heavy showers breaking out over Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor, and perhaps other parts of Devon and Cornwall this afternoon, but very hit and miss, and they should tend to fade through this evening. If you do catch one, though, could well be on the heavy side. For most places, it's a cracking evening, lots of spring sunshine to be had, but it does feel fresh on those North Sea coasts with that breeze continuing to push in a little bit of low cloud, half fret at times, and we'll see that increasing again as we go through the evening and overnight. More of these eastern areas susceptible to that misty and murky weather coming in, maybe even the odd little bit of drizzle here and there too. But for most, it's a dry night. Certainly most western areas just stay with clear skies. That will allow temperatures to fall away through parts of central western Scotland well down into single digits. On to Thursday, it's a similar story. Likely to be a bit duller first thing over the Midlands and southeast England. That cloud should tend to melt away, but it may take a while before it clears away from eastern areas. And again, on the east coast, it may stick around for much of the day. Certainly that east coast will again be cooler. Elsewhere, actually, temperatures not as high tomorrow, but still pleasant in the afternoon sunshine.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house.
You could be the next big winner on the road in this brand new Alnag Baron 560 motorhome, courtesy of Marquis Leisure. Imagine the fun you could have in this luxurious home from home worth over £67,000. We'll also give you £5,000 in tax-free cash to make your next getaway a great one. And it could be all yours. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 14th of May, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom, with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
And will prisoners be released early? Well, more criminals are set to walk free on Britain's streets if they behave well in prison, after serving only a third of their sentence.
Put farmers first. That's the message from America's Agricultural Secretary, who told our political editor why we've got to support our farmers.
You can't have true national security without food security.
Well, they're hiking taxes on these family farms. That's a big issue here.
That's right, and that's a problem. I mean,
are you worried about that?
100%.
And Meghan Markle's popularity is at an all-time low. The Duchess of Sussex is now viewed positively by just 1 in 5 of us. That's according to YouGov data.
Disorder at the border continues. Britain's illegal migration crisis exposed by our very own GB News' Patrick Christys. He spoke to people in France who are determined to get across the channel.
You'll get a job in the UK.
Refugee, you need paper, passport. You know, these people is long in Europe, like 5 years, 6 years, you don't have paper.
So you went to get in a boat today?
Yeah, yesterday.
And there was a problem yesterday, and there was a problem with the motor.
And are we about to witness a fat jabs revolution? A top doctor says Britons could soon use weight loss drugs to fight disease and live longer.
And that conviction quashed Peter Sullivan, who spent 38 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit. His lawyer, Sarah Myatt, spoke emotionally, I thought, outside the court.
I am not angry. I am not bitter. I am simply anxious to return to my loved ones and family, as I've got to make the most of what is left of the existence I am granted in this world.
And the ultimate police chase. A Russian man led police in Florida on a dramatic marine chase for over an hour after stealing a luxury yacht worth around £2 million. He was eventually arrested.
And the Prime Minister will be challenged by Kemi Badenoch at Prime's questions from midday today. Don't forget to send in your questions for Sir Keir Starmer. gbnews.com/your say.
Northern Ireland's biggest agricultural show takes place today. We'll be live from that Balmoral show.
The sun is out, the crowds are here, the countryside has came to town for the 157th Balmoral show. We'll be here throughout the day.
That's a very lively interview we did before the break, Andrew, on military spending with Tobias Elwood saying, yes, we should spend more, and a representative of the Communist Party saying that this was all a big capitalist conspiracy.
Yeah, I did think she didn't deal with your point that communist countries have traditionally spent the most money on conscripted armies.
Yeah. Yes, it was a very strange interview, and I think her point that young people don't want to serve in the army is shown by polling. But if there was a crisis, if we did have to sign up, if there was a more apparent threat, I think people would come round. I think people would want to defend Britain.
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, let us know what you think about that and all the different topics we're discussing today. Send your views to gbnews.com/your say. First of all, here's the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good morning to you. Just after 11 o'clock, our top stories. The US President Donald Trump has met Syria's interim leader, Ahmed al-Shara, in Saudi Arabia on day 2 of his tour of the Middle East. It comes after he announced the lifting of sanctions on Damascus yesterday. Now, Donald Trump's been at a Gulf summit in Riyadh. This his last actions of his visit for the kingdom. That will conclude it before he moves on. Speaking earlier, the US president says he wants a deal with Iran and also for Arab countries to normalise relations with Israel. Now, the meeting with the Syrian president came after Trump announced the removal of sanctions imposed on the government of the ousted Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad. Trump says the move is designed to give the country a chance at greatness. But a very significant meeting because Shara, a former al-Qaeda commander, remains a designated terrorist in the US. Trump will head to Qatar next for the second part of his Middle East visit.
We are currently exploring normalizing relations with Syria's new government, as you know, beginning with my meeting with President Ahmed al-Shara and Secretary Rubio's meeting with the Syrian foreign minister. I am also ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria to give them a fresh start. It gives them a chance for greatness. The sanctions were really crippling, very powerful. And I spoke to Mohammed, and I spoke to our friend from Turkey, who we just spoke to also by phone now, but felt very strongly that this would give them a chance. It's not going to be easy anyway, so it gives them a good, strong chance.
The Royal College of Psychiatrists has withdrawn its support for the bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales. Kim Leadbeater's proposal will return to the Commons on Friday, when MPs will again debate possible changes, with a vote in Parliament expected next month. However, the Royal College has now withheld its support over serious concerns about the bill in its current form regarding the safeguarding of people with mental illness. A similar bill proposal, though, did pass the first parliamentary hurdle in Scotland yesterday.
Yes, 70. No, 56. There was one abstention. The motion is therefore agreed.
It was introduced by Liberal Democrat Liam MacArthur and will now go through further phases of scrutiny before it becomes law. He has hailed its passing as a landmark moment.
Relief. I'm delighted, but also very conscious of the work that lies ahead. But today, undoubtedly, is an historic day for the Scottish Parliament. Third time of asking, it's taken steps to back the general principles of a bill on assisted dying, to allow the detailed scrutiny now to take place and the consideration of amendments. So I'm delighted.
Thousands more civil servants are set to be moved out of London as the government seeks to cut costs and radically reform the state. Under the plans announced, 12,000 roles will be moved to a series of new regional campuses across the country. 11 government buildings on Whitehall will close, including one of the largest Westminster sites, in a move the government hope will save £94 million a year by 2030. Now, under the proposals, half of senior civil service roles will be based outside London by the end of the decade. Burberry's announced it could cut around 1,700 roles worldwide over the next 2 years as part of plans to reduce costs. Britain's biggest luxury fashion brand made a pre-tax loss of £66 million for the 12 months to the end of March. That was compared with a £383 million profit in the previous year. The fashion brand's seen a slump in sales around the world. Burberry shares, though, jumped as much as 9.9% following the job cuts announcement. The Menendez brothers, who were sentenced for their murder of their parents in 1989, have both received reduced terms after an appeal hearing considered new evidence. It means that Lyle and Eric Menendez, who are 57 and 54, could be granted parole as soon as next month. Now, the brothers claim they killed Kitty and Jose Menendez out of self-defence after years of sexual abuse. We'll leave you with some dramatic pictures from the United States, some police chase pictures. A Russian man led police in Florida on a marine chase for more than an hour after stealing a luxury yacht worth more than £2 million. He was eventually arrested when deputies boarded the boat. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 11:30.
Hello, welcome back. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and me, Miriam Cates, standing in for Bev Turner.
Now, to clear up space in our jails, prisoners are going to be released from as little as a third of the way through their sentence if they behave well.
But if they fail to behave well, they'll have to spend longer in jail, as the current automatic early release of offenders 40% of the way through their sentences is due to be scrapped.
The changes are designed to incentivise rehabilitation, but will they work? And this is all being proposed by a review led by David Gauke, who was a Tory cabinet minister.
Yes, there seems to be a kind of trend of governments choosing previous grandee from a different party to try and make these things cross-party. Don't know if it works.
Well, it's to cause a wedge, isn't it? Let's talk to the Labour MP for Blackheath and Middleton South, Graham Stringer, who joins us now. Graham, morning to you.
Morning, morning.
I mean, the government has to do something, I suppose. Prisons are full to bursting. I think there's barely 1,200 spaces left. But is this the right way forward, do you think?
Well, we don't know what Gawk's going to say yet, so there's a certain level of speculation. I think anything is better than the chaotic way prisoners were released last time, where hardened criminals came out of prison having not served the sentences, were drinking champagne and toasting Keir Starmer. That's embarrassing, but worse than it being embarrassing for the government and the Prime Minister, it is damaging to the public's trust in the criminal justice system. People expect criminals to be locked up for the time that they are sentenced to. So this looks as though it will be more systematic, but at the end of the day, the focus on prison and prisoners, I think, misses the point. A lot of people, particularly people who've witnessed or been victims of violent crime, are not so much concerned with the prisons and prisoners. They don't want to see these people walking about the streets. So it's offensive. I've had a number of cases where people who've murdered constituents, who have violently attacked constituents, have been let out early, and the families of those people have to see these people walking about sooner than they would have expected. So I think it undermines trust in civic society.
Graham, let's leave aside the issue of prison overcrowding for a moment, because obviously that is one of the factors precipitating this reform. But there's another aspect of this reform that could be quite positive, couldn't it? Which is that if a criminal is set a minimum sentence and also a maximum one at the same time, there is a much better incentive to behave well whilst in prison. Now, we can argue how low or high the minimum sentence should be and whether that should be fair, etc. But nevertheless, this could be quite a positive reform, couldn't it?
It gives a pathway for convicted people to get out of prison earlier. So in a sense, I think, Miriam, what you're saying is it gives a protection to prison officers, because they're less likely to be threatened if prisoners know that they will stay in prison longer if they do that kind of thing, which I guess is the case now. But having studied the parole board, I was on a select committee that looked at the parole board, and they try to assess whether prisoners will reoffend if they are let out. I thought the evidence base for that was poor, and that really they could not tell if prisoners were, when let out, were going to reoffend. And I've had a couple of cases. One, a man known as the Coronation Street rapist, and multiple rapists who I tried to keep in prison, and he was let out, and he was back. The good news was he was back in prison very quickly, but the parole board had got the assessment wrong. So yes, it may make prison officers safer, but I'm not sure it makes the public safer.
Can we talk to you as well, Graham? Kemi Badenoch has done an interview today where, excuse me, with GBNews, where she said the shadow cabinet has effectively signed up to a deal where, if they form the next government, I must say, looking at the polls, that seems pretty unlikely, that they will reverse any changes to Brexit that Keir Starmer implements in the next few weeks. Yes. Where do you think Starmer stands on this?
Well, we will find out, or we will get an insight on Monday after the meeting of heads of state in London. I mean, the majority of the senior cabinet ministers campaigned very hard for a second referendum after the first referendum had gone against what they wished. I didn't approve of that. A decision had been made by the public and should have been implemented much more quickly. So I have doubts about the motivation of some members of the cabinet, and I listened carefully to the debate debate yesterday, when the minister responding to the debate on the trade deals was asked whether the European Court of Justice, i.e. a foreign court, would have adjudication rights over trade policy. He didn't answer the question, but his answer from memory was that somebody has to decide. So Miriam, I'm worried about what the government will do, having campaigned for this country to be free to make its own laws for good or bad. I mean, countries' governments make mistakes, but I think they should be our mistakes, not determined by other countries and other countries' courts.
The Prime Minister does seem to have recognised that somewhat this week in his speech over immigration and the commitments to bring numbers down. Of course, the jury's out on whether or not the proposals will have the desired effect. But nevertheless, it does seem like Starmer and Number 10 are tacking back towards this patriotic idea of the Labour Party standing for the working classes, the hard-working people of Britain and the sovereignty of Britain. Is that something that could split the Labour Party?
Well, if you put it like that, I don't think so. I've felt for a long time the Labour Party has lost its connection and the trust of what used to be the white working class. They are large sections of that core vote are no longer voting for the Labour Party. In fact, in the recent by-election, it was the more middle-class people in Frodsham and Halesby who were voting Labour, and the people in Runcorn who have traditionally voted Labour were voting Reform. So just for sheer self-interest, we need to, as a party, we need to right that. But I also think that if we don't represent a very large section of society, then we're heading for trouble and division as a society. So I welcome those moves. You only have to knock on 2 or 3 doors almost anywhere in the country and find that people are very concerned. They mention the boats coming across the channel because it's so very visual, which is a small number, but the absolute numbers and the fact that many of these people who are coming to the country don't have skills and will be a burden on services and put enormous pressure on housing, which we haven't got enough of. People are genuinely concerned about that, and I'm pleased that Keir is doing something about it. Not enough yet, but he is doing something, and I think it was unfortunate that he used a phrase which had resonances with Enoch Powell's River of Blood speech in 1968.
Interesting. All right, Graham, thanks. Always good to talk to you. That's Graham Stringer, the Labour MP. Very nice to talk to you. Now, we've got some breaking news. The Crown Prosecution Service has decided not to charge the former UK Reform MP Rupert Lowe in relation to the allegation of threats he made apparently against the Reform chairman, Zia Youssef.
Yes, Malcolm McAfee, head of the Crown Prosecution Service's Special Crime Division, said, having considered a number of witness statements, we have concluded that there is insufficient evidence to provide a realistic prospect of conviction. Following a thorough and detailed review of the evidence in relation to an allegation of threats, we have decided that no criminal charges should be brought against a sitting MP.
I know for a fact that there's quite a lot of people in the leadership of Reform thought it was insane that the police were brought in the first place.
Absolutely, and the Reform Party...
Politics can be a rough old business.
It can,
and a bit of shouting
but Reform have stood
no
up
one.
against this kind of complaints culture and the weaponisation of the law and the Equality Act, and yet that was used against him. But
really,
anyway, that's big news.
It is big news. Yeah. I did the interview with Rupert Lowe in the Mail, which triggered the big fallout with other Reform MPs. I think he's a very impressive man.
Yeah, well, he'll no doubt start his campaigns again. Just to go back to the Graham Stringer interview, though, because Graham Stringer was one of the only Labour MPs who challenged lockdown, challenged school closures, and particularly on his bench. I mean, the Labour Party, you've got to remember, were even more keen on lockdowns than the Conservative Party. Yeah. He was incredibly brave and, did a lot of...
It didn't make him popular on his own side.
It didn't, but he's got a lot of integrity.
He really has. Now, still ahead, the Prime Minister will be challenged by Kemi Bay not today at Prime Minister's Questions, so don't forget to send in your questions. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
This is our country,
and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, part of a Soviet-era spacecraft stranded in orbit for more than 50 years will crash back to Earth today.
Yes, Cosmos 482 launched in 1972 on a mission to Venus, but it failed to escape Earth's orbit and broke into 4 pieces.
Well, now experts are closely monitoring its re-entry, but where it will land remains a mystery.
It was due to land in, what is it, about 40 minutes now?
Yeah,
not long to go
like.
till we find out. Well, earlier we spoke to space expert Andy Land. He told us what makes this spacecraft different to the others we've seen previously.
Currently, it's over the South Pacific, so it's heading towards South America. The odds are really unlikely. The chances are it's going to crash into the ocean, to be quite honest. Other parts of this fell into the Pacific Ocean, although in the early days when it got into the wrong orbit, of course, the lower sections of it actually crashed into New Zealand and landed in a field. But no, I think you got more chance of being struck by lightning or winning the lottery than actually being hit by a piece of this material. The only interesting thing about this mission, of course, it is a Venus atmospheric entry probe, which means it's designed to survive entry through a dense atmosphere. And in particular case, Venus's atmosphere is more dense than the Earth's atmosphere. It's designed to withstand fantastic temperatures, absolutely fantastic temperatures, huge pressures. So this piece will hit the ground or hit into the ocean. That's what makes this a very different creature from previous satellites which have broken up, which normally they just break up into pieces. This is designed to actually come back. And in case people think, well, wouldn't the parachute system operate? It's unlikely the parachute system is operating at all after half a century. So it's going to be a ballistic drop.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
11:22, Britain's Newsroom live across the UK. Andrew Pearce, Miriam Cates. We're going to go straight to talk to Chris Hope, our political editor, after that breaking news. The Crown Prosecution Service is not going to be charging Reform UK MP, well, it was Reform UK, Rupert Lowe, in relation to those allegations made by Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman. Chris, this was always, in my view, going to be the outcome.
Yes, many thought so. These were claims about Rupert Lowe, which he thoroughly denied. Of course, the claims about threats to people in Reform. But we have now a statement here from Malcolm McAfee, who's the head of the CPS's Special Crime Division. They say the following, that following a detailed review in evidence in relation to an allegation of threats, we've decided that no criminal charges should be brought against a sitting MP. Having considered a number of witness statements, we've concluded there's no sufficient evidence to have a realistic prospect of conviction. And they go on to say the CPS's role is to not decide whether the person is guilty, but to make a fair, independent and objective assessment about whether it's appropriate to present charges for a criminal court to consider. Based on that, their legal test, they say, for a criminal prosecution has not been met. I've just got off the phone to Rupert Lowe. He is currently on a boat off Great Yarmouth inspecting wind farms with RWE, which is a German energy company, on the way to Scroby Sands. I said to him, is this now over, Rupert Lowe, this civil war which has caused such damage to both, I think, Reform UK, Nigel Farage, yourself and others, people who support Reform UK don't want to see these battles being fought amongst themselves rather than taking on the established parties. He says it is not, and he has issued a 16-page letter before action against Zia Youssef, the party chairman, Lee Anderson, the Reform's chief whip, and Reform UK corporately itself. And he says that unless there's a response by tomorrow, he will issue formal legal action in the High Court for defamation against those three people. This is the end of part of this saga, but by no means the end of it at all.
Fascinating, Chris. That's Chris Hope, our political editor. Well, we've got the panel with us, Stephen Pound and Mike Parry. Stephen Pound is a former MP. I thought it was astonishing that Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, went to the police to say, woe is me, I'd been threatened.
Interestingly, Andrew, you actually said right back at the day that you felt that there was a whiff about this one. And there was something, I remember you saying it on here, and I said, well, I'm going to reserve judgment. Then, the following week, a letter appears signed by all his members of staff saying he's one of the best bosses they've ever worked for. Now, my good friend Keir Cousins actually was the Labour candidate who got beaten by him in Great Yarmouth. He was a good mate of mine. And quite interesting, the very strong emotions that Rupert Lowe engenders. He used to be the chairman of Southampton Football Club, and he was so massively unpopular there that they had a whip round for my mate Keir to stand against him. But look, the real problem with this is Reform need this like a hole in the head. And if they're going to go ahead now with legal cases, this is going to be really bad because, you know, in all honesty, vicious backstabbing and infighting, you know, that's the job of the other parties.
Exactly. But also, aren't those members of Reform going to say, well, and they're joining in huge numbers, over 200,000, what are they paying their subscriptions for?
Expensive legal costs.
Huge legal costs, because Rupert Lowe is a man of some means. I mean, we're talking about... Exactly. So he can afford to, you know, go and see my lord and all that kind of stuff. But if Reform lose this, they could be handling huge bills.
There'd be seven figures.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, because, you know, we're all slaves to news and all that, but in the last couple of weeks, I've been reading pieces where political commentators have been casting doubt on Nigel Farage's ability to hold a proper political party together. I don't know if you've seen them, but, you know, this wave of populism, winning the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, but nothing else. And yet, my understanding was he's got quite a team going at Millbank, hasn't he?
Well, the fact that they managed to field more candidates in the local elections than actually either Conservatives or Labour shows how quickly they have mobilised an administrative element, which is obviously very impressive. But I think perhaps the temptation of people in the Westminster bubble is to, or people who are very online, shall we say, is to say, well, infighting like this is going to ruin their chances at the election. I'm not sure it will.
Well, I'm not sure it will, but Rupert Lowe was a great asset to them.
He was, absolutely.
He was the hardest working MP in the Commons, not just in Reform, asked more questions than anybody else. He's out and about even today in his constituency, we hear. Doing his job and putting a load of time on, way and above. Now, quite recently, there was a by-election near me in a town called Sutton. It was nothing to do with the council elections. It just happened somebody died and they needed... I could not believe the organisation Reform brought to it, honestly. I was walking down Sutton High Street. Not only was the candidate there, a young woman, aged 30, but the crowds around them, and I got chatting to her. She'd heard from Lee Anderson, she'd heard from Nigel. She was, you know, fascinated to hear that I worked at a news station where Nigel works, and I thought they were very, very well organised.
But Miriam, on your point, it's an important point. We've had, you think of another sort of charismatic single person who's tried to lead a political party, and I'm thinking of George Galloway. He wins a couple of by-elections, and then he disappears. And when he was asked after, he says, look, I didn't have the organisation, I didn't have the grassroots. If you don't have that, what Reform have now got is a base. They've now got a foundation. And what I'm hearing about what they've got at Millbank, which is, of course, where the good dear old Labour Party won in 1997, in that very... It's where Tony Benn was born, on that very, very site. You know, what he's now got, he's got the organisation in place. Now, a lot of us are looking to see whether Reform are going to make some of the errors they made before. I think one of their councillors has already had to be deselected. That's one, out of hundreds. So this is bad for Reform. However, what it actually pulls to mind is Reform a one-man party? I don't think it is anymore. Well, but you cannot deny Nigel Farage's charisma.
I'm just going to have to stop you there because we have got a response from Rupert Lowe to read. The Metropolitan Police have today confirmed that they are dropping their investigation into the false allegations that I made threats against the Reform Party chairman. This was not normal political infighting. It was a sinister attempt to weaponise the criminal justice system against me, putting not just my political future, but my liberty at risk. all because I dared to raise constructive criticisms of Nigel Farage, stood firm on deporting illegal migrants and pushed for reform to be run democratically, not as a vehicle to stroke one man's ego.
Wow.
How did Reform respond? With a brutal smear campaign for the sin of asking legitimate questions about the party's direction, policies and leadership. I was vilified and targeted. I'm ashamed to have shared a parliamentary platform with them, ashamed to have trusted them, ashamed to have called them friends, and it goes on.
Says Farage is no leader. He's a coward and a viper. I feel deeply embarrassed. I ever thought he was the man to lead.
Good gracious me.
Other opinions are available.
That is quite a response.
I mean, that's civil war inside Britain's newest political party, isn't it? That's a civil war.
That will make headlines, be huge stories in the newspaper tomorrow. Unbelievable, Stephen. Did you
take off in America? Actually used the word viper. Yeah. Well, I think the key thing what's happening here is this is now it's got legs, unlike vipers. This is going to run and run. We're going to see this in the courts. It's going to be dragged through the coals.
Surely they'll come to outer course.
Well, what I was just going to say is somebody like Ben Habib, who's actually a pretty rational and sensible person, surely he would actually say to Rupert, you're not doing the cause any good. Ultimately, Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe agree with more than they disagree.
Ben Habib is no longer a member of Reform. He left Reform.
I know he is, precisely so, but he's a big friend of Rupert Lowe's. And he's a rational and sensible person.
But Rupert Lowe has even started talking about founding his own party in opposition to
Reform. In effect, he has.
Obviously, we are talking about infighting, which is Nigel Farage
normal
consistently criticised the Conservative Party for infighting.
And it's what voters hate.
But, you know, you two do your fair share of infighting, but not always, because I believe that you recently put your differences aside. There you go.
On a temporary
football match. We're looking at a picture of Stephen and Mike at which football game was it?
That's Craven Cottage, the Field of Dreams.
Yes, it's
Fulham Football Club.
Yeah, we didn't put our differences aside because I was the Everton supporter. I'm the good-looking one on the right, and the old man on the left is Stephen Pound, who's a Fulham fan. OK, Everton won 3-1 because I'd been telling Stephen for weeks, if not months, you know, class is permanent, mate. A bit of temporary form, no good at all. I came out the victor. Simple as that, I'm afraid. Simple as that.
Well, if there's one thing worse than a bad loser, it's a bad winner.
Did you sit together?
We sat side by side, but not holding hands.
Yeah, and by the way, I bought all the drink.
I drank it.
Winner's prerogative.
You did, yeah.
Did you really buy all the beers? Did you not buy any beers at all, Steve?
Well, it's very difficult because
I just have to get to the bar first because I'm faster on my feet. But that's been the case of working with Stephen all my life.
Thank you both, lively as always. Don't forget, it's PMQs at midday. And as always, Tom Harwood and Gloria De Piero want your questions for the Prime Minister. So please do send them in to gbnews.com/your say.
You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Stick with us.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day out there for the vast majority. A bit more cloud over parts of the east, and it's quite cool on North Sea coasts. And we're seeing 1 or 2 showers this afternoon over southwest England, close to this area of low pressure. But that is pulling away. High pressure is the dominant force, bringing a lot of dry and sunny weather, not just today, but for the rest of this week. Now, the winds coming down from the north, these North Sea coasts feeling a bit chilly, and it has been quite a gloomy start over northeast England, and we'll continue to feed in quite a bit of cloud over parts of South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, and all the while on these North Sea coasts, the risk of low cloud. On the coast itself, temperatures struggling to 10 or 11 degrees. Further west, though, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant as we see temperatures getting into the low 20s. 1 or 2 heavy showers breaking out over Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor, and perhaps other parts of Devon and Cornwall this afternoon, but very hit and miss, and they should tend to fade through this evening. If you do catch one, though, could well be on the heavy side. For most places, it's a cracking evening, lots of spring sunshine to be had, but it does feel fresh on those North Sea coasts with that breeze continuing to push in a little bit of low cloud, half fret at times, and we'll see that increasing again as we go through the evening and overnight. More of these eastern areas susceptible to that misty and murky weather coming in, maybe even the odd little bit of drizzle here and there too. But for most, it's a dry night. Certainly most western areas just stay with clear skies. That will allow temperatures to fall away through parts of central and western Scotland well down into single digits. On to Thursday. it's a similar story. Likely to be a bit duller first thing over the Midlands, southeast England. That cloud should tend to melt away, but it may take a while before it clears away from eastern areas. And again, on the east coast, it may stick around for much of the day. Certainly that east coast will again be cooler. Elsewhere, actually, temperatures not as high tomorrow, but still pleasant in the afternoon sunshine.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, up next, we'll be taking a deep dive into a concerning new report about school readiness. But time now for your news headlines with Aaron.
Thank you very much indeed. We start with some breaking news. As you've just been hearing, no criminal charges will be brought against the former Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe after claims he made verbal threats towards the party's chairman. The Great Yarmouth MP was suspended from Nigel Farage's party in March amid a deepening row over allegations about his conduct, which he always denied. Malcolm McHaffey, the head of the CPS, has said this following a thorough and detailed review of the evidence in relation to an allegation of threats. We have decided no criminal charges should be brought against a sitting MP. President Trump has met Syria's interim leader Ahmed al-Sharaa in Saudi Arabia on day 2 of his tour of the Middle East. It comes after he announced the lifting of sanctions on Damascus yesterday. Mr. Trump's been attending a Gulf summit in Riyadh, which will conclude his visit to the kingdom. Trump will head to Qatar shortly for the next stop of his 4-day tour of the Middle East. He has said that he wants to deal with Iran, although they must stop sponsoring terror. And also, he says Arab countries should normalise relations with Israel. Israel not part of this tour. Now, the meeting with Ahmed al-Sharaa is significant because he is a former al-Qaeda commander who led rebels in overthrowing the Assad regime in December, but he remains a designated terrorist in the US. But Donald Trump has spoken of the meeting and says he wants the country to have a chance. The Royal College of Physicians has withdrawn its support for the bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales. Kim Leadbeater's proposal will return to the Commons on Friday, when MPs will again debate possible changes, with a vote in Parliament expected next month. But the Royal College has now withheld its support over serious concerns about the bill in its current format. It's over the safeguarding of people with mental illness. A similar bill proposal was passed at the first hurdle in Scotland yesterday. Thousands more civil servants will be moved out of London as the government seeks to continue cutting costs. Under plans announced today, 12,000 roles will be moved to a series of new regional campuses across the country. Some of the biggest buildings in Whitehall will be closed. The government hope to save £94 million a year under 2032 and hope that half of all senior civil service roles will be outside London by 2030. Burberry's announced it could cut around 1,700 jobs across the world over the next 2 years. It's all part of plans to reduce costs. Britain's biggest luxury fashion brand made a pre-tax loss of £66 million for the 12 months to the end of March. That's compared with a £383 million profit in the previous year. The slump in sales had affected the company, but the announcement has caused shares to jump as much as 9.9%. Finally, Nottingham Forest striker Taiwo Awoniyi is in an induced coma after having the first phase of surgery on a serious abdominal injury. The Nigeria international underwent a procedure having suffered a serious injury during Sunday's 2-2 draw against Leicester. It's when he collided with the post. No suggestion that the 27-year-old's condition is life-threatening. It's understood the coma will help restrict his current movement and will also regulate his heart rate. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 12 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets. The pound buys you $1.33 and 1.18 euros. The price of gold, £2,424.64 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,599 points.
Done.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Time's 11:40, Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Miriam Cates.
Now, the majority of teachers believe the government will miss its school-ready targets, according to a new poll.
So this is the target of 3 in 4 children starting school with a good level of development they say is being hindered by the lack of affordable childcare, ultimately failing to prepare kids for reception.
Well, we're joined now by the director of Kindred Squared, Felicity Gillespie. Felicity, good morning. Thank you for joining us. We've known for some time that school readiness is getting worse and worse. Can you explain what school readiness is and what and why the problem is happening?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. The problem of school readiness is a very considerable one, and I think the point about this poll is it's a really clear articulation from reception school teachers about just how big the challenge is. The school readiness measure that is being used in this poll is called the Good Level of Development, which is a government measure assessed by teachers at the end of the first year of school, the reception year. It's currently at 67.7%. The government target is for 75%, as you've said. And in this poll, 80% of teachers are saying they don't think that target's achievable. These are the skills that we measure. We've measured for 5 years now. That start at the beginning of school, when school children first go to reception, and they're the very basic skills of the age-related milestones of development around communication, around physical and emotional development that enable a child to fully access the curriculum.
So things like being able to be toilet trained, put a coat on, understand simple instructions, and yet this is falling every year. Now, the teachers in this survey are blaming a lack of affordable childcare. Do you think that's what's to blame, or are there other factors?
I think, more affordable childcare is always going to be welcome, but I think what we have to also remember is that parents are our children's first educators. Right. You don't start learning, you don't start developing when you start going to nursery. In fact, we know that the first 2 years of development of a child's life are the most critical of all, that your development at 22 months is actually an accurate predictor of where you're going to be educationally when you're 26 years. So where those first 2 years are absolutely foundational to your physical, mental and educational success. So I think really engaging parents and years of research that we've been doing with parents and teachers just consistently highlights the need for better information for parents, particularly about what being school ready means. What are the skills they should be practicing with their children in advance of starting reception?
What's happened to parenting? Why are parents falling down now, Felicity, much more than they used to? Isn't grandma and grandpa around to give advice and tips on good parenting?
Look, I think it's a hugely complicated picture. I mean, there's all sorts of factors at work that one hears about, that parents are working more, that, as you say, that the nuclear family is smaller often and less connected to the wider family to be able to provide that help. Parents are working often more than one job. They cite things like the cost of living crisis. And in our research, they talk about a lack of information, a lack of understanding about, you know, whose job is it actually to potty train a child? And I think there is a growing sense of unsureness. And actually, that's one of the reasons why the early years sector has come together to produce a very simple definition of what those skills are, which is going to be sent out to millions of parents over the summer so that they have that guidance with some support from lots of professional organisations about how to help their children develop these skills.
Felicity, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there, but it'd be great to have you back on when that is published to discuss advice for parents. Well, that was Felicity from Kindred Squared.
Now, up next, off to Northern Ireland's biggest agricultural show. It's the Balmoral Show.
The crowds are here, the sun is out, but what's the weather doing across Europe? Here's your update.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Some heavy downpours and gusty winds over the central Mediterranean thanks to a storm system over the next few days, particularly wet and windy on Thursday across Sicily with that heavy rain, and those gusty winds will spread more widely across Italy and up towards parts of Croatia later this week. Some heavy showers too for Sardinia, northern parts of Spain. Generally dry, but on the cool and sunny side in Portugal. Sunny skies for Barcelona into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, and let's cross straight to our GB News Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie, who is having a momentous day at the Balmoral show.
Who wrote that?
Not me. Hello, Dougie.
You stole my line.
Yes. Oh, well, I'm sure you can come up with another one. But the weather looks good. How many people can we expect today?
Oh, there is tens of thousands of people. This is Ireland's biggest agricultural show, and it's a real chance to get take the temperature of the farming community, because most farmers, of course, work by themselves or are always with their family. So this is a big social event, and the talk here is around the tariffs, Trump's meat, etc. Well, of course, we are still part of the EU here, so on the 4th of December, the Mercosur agreement was signed, which allows 180,000 tonnes of Brazilian beef to come into Europe, tariff-free, and if we need to watch that next week in these negotiations with Keir Starmer and the EU. But the real problems here are in around legislation and what they are doing to the farming community. Never mind inheritance tax, because there is one consultation paper going through at the minute that is about phosphates and how they're going to reduce that on land. And joining me now is the Vice President of the Ulster Farmers Union, John McClelland. John, how scary is this for farmers?
Yeah, we're very concerned. The phosphorus, the Nutrients Action Programme just landed with us last week. We had no prior engagement with government. There had been no consultation done with ourselves or any other stakeholder around it, and it just came as a bit of a bolt from the blue. And one of the biggest disappointments, Dougie, in that report is there's no recognition of all the work that farmers have done for 20 plus years now. We have been engaging in nutrient management techniques on our farms. That's like we have a closed period. We don't spread during certain times of the year. We use certain spreading techniques in order to reduce the potential for nutrient loss.
But to explain this very simply, it's 1 cow or 4 sheep per acre. If they are putting 10 kilos on 1 hectare, that is 2.45 acres. That means that you will need 2 acres for every cow, which will put all of the farmers into the inheritance tax threshold. Is that not correct?
Yeah, well, even apart from that, the land just isn't even there. Northern Ireland is a small place. All the land is currently being used. We don't have the opportunity to make any more of it. So really what we need to find is a technology solution which will help us to take that phosphorus out of the manures that are produced from our livestock and then export that off the island to places where it's needed.
Well, there you go. I mean, you can see how government isn't thinking with the farming industry. And this not only is inheritance tax, it's legislation, it's the EU protocol, because of course there is no surplus beef in the rest of the UK. The only place in the UK that is net exporters of beef is right here in Ireland, particularly Northern Ireland, and we cannot be part of the Trump deal. Keir Starmer was very clever when he said Britain, Britain, Britain. He never mentioned the UK once in that speech. So there is real fear amongst the farming community here of what lies ahead for them.
Fascinating, isn't it? Thanks, Dougie. That's Dougie Beattie at Ireland's biggest agricultural show.
Absolutely, looks amazing. It does annoy me, this trend in modern politics where a government, a party, and all parties do this, will say something like we are in favour of farmers, we support farmers, whilst doing something that's completely different. The last Conservative government, we are the party of low taxes, whilst raising taxes.
Highest taxes for decades.
It's not surprising that people feel disenfranchised when they can see the reality and compare it with what's being said.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, still to come. It is Prime Minister's questions, of course, today. We wonder what Kemi Bagnett will go on. Plenty of opportunities, plenty of subjects, you'd think. Stay with us for all the build-up. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day out there for the vast majority. A bit more cloud over parts of the east, and it's quite cool on North Sea coasts. And we're seeing 1 or 2 showers this afternoon over southwest England, close to this area of low pressure. But that is pulling away. High pressure is the dominant force, bringing a lot of dry and sunny weather, not just today, but for the rest of this week. Now, the winds coming down from the north, these North Sea coasts feeling a bit chilly, and it has been quite a gloomy start over North northeast England, and we'll continue to feed in quite a bit of cloud over parts of South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, Lincolnshire, and all the while on these North Sea coasts, the risk of low cloud. On the coast itself, temperatures struggling to 10 or 11 degrees. Further west, though, in the sunshine, feeling very pleasant as we see temperatures getting into the low 20s. One or two heavy showers breaking out over Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor, and perhaps other parts of Devon and Cornwall this afternoon, but very hit and miss, and they should tend to fade through this evening. If you do catch one, though, could well be on the heavy side. For most places, it's a cracking evening, lots of spring sunshine to be had, but it does feel fresh on those North Sea coasts with that breeze continuing to push in a little bit of low cloud, half fret at times, and we'll see that increasing again as we go through the evening and overnight. More of these eastern areas susceptible to that misty and murky weather coming in, maybe even the odd little bit of drizzle here and there too. But for most, it's a dry night. Certainly most western areas just stay with clear skies. That will allow temperatures to fall away through parts of central western Scotland well down into single digits. On to Thursday, it's a similar story. Likely to be a bit duller first thing over the Midlands and southeast England. That cloud should tend to melt away, but it may take a while before it clears away from eastern areas. And again, on the east coast, it may stick around for much of the day. Certainly that east coast will again be cooler. Elsewhere, actually, temperatures not as high tomorrow, but still pleasant in the afternoon sunshine.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
What does it feel like to be a Great British Giveaway winner?
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry.
Do you know what? I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
Yes, that is fantastic.
You know, you have no idea how much I needed it. Oh my goodness.
That's wonderful. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gobsmacked. Thank you, GBNews.
I'd say don't hesitate, do it. If you're not in it, you've got no chance of winning it. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
You really could be our next big winner. Head over to gbnews.com/win now to find out how and get your entry for the Great British Giveaway. Great prizes, even greater wins.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Not long till the Prime Minister's question time. I wonder what the Leader opposition will go on today.
Well, there's the gift of the farmers from the Agriculture Minister. There's the Brexit reset summit next week.
Yeah.
We know that the Shadow Cabinet have signed letters saying that they will overturn any changes to Brexit if they form the next government. What else could it be?
I think it'd be good to go into the detail of the government's immigration strategy, because there are some seemingly good announcements in there, but the detail is quite confusing about whether or not it will work, whether these are new announcements, whether the restrictions will actually bring down numbers. So I think the details of that would be interesting.
I tell you who's down also to ask a question, PMQs, Nigel Farage.
Oh, now, is he on the list?
When he rises, if he gets called by the Speaker and he rises to ask his question, he's going to be howled at from both sides because of the Crown Prosecution Service deciding to take no action against Rupert Lowe.
Also attend?
Well,
and where will he sit?
Of course, we know Rupert Lowe's in Great Yarmouth, if you remember.
Oh, of course, yes.
He's
so he won't be there
out
today.
looking at wind farms, offshore wind farms, and he's issued that extraordinary inflammatory statement.
Yes,
so that will be a bit of theatre for Nigel Farage, won't
very
it?
interesting. So, of course, Nigel Farage is in this very strange position where he's at 30% in the polls, but in the House of Commons, he's only got the support of 5 or MPs.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get huge cheers.
No, quite the reverse.
It's quite an intimidating environment, actually, because it is so packed. The House of Commons really only has seats for about 400 people, and yet there are 650 MPs. So it's a very, very cramped atmosphere. When you stand up,
but he thrives
hear all
on
the
it,
noise.
doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, he does. But it's very loud in there, and you often can't hear what's being said. I don't know how ministers hear the question. Perhaps they don't. Maybe that's why they don't always answer.
Did you find it nerve-wracking, asking a question?
PMQs is quite nerve-wracking because it is so full, and because, you know, it's widely watched, whereas a lot of debates throughout the week aren't widely watched, and it's more relaxed. But it is, you know, it's a very exciting atmosphere, and, you know, it's quite jovial often, actually, and there's an element of theatre to it.
She could also go for them on unemployment, which has reached a 4-year high.
Yes,
Kerry Badenoch. Job vacancies falling.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of economic bad news for which to challenge the Prime Minister.
And I think the question is always, you have these 7... The Leader of the Opposition has 7 questions that they're allowed to ask. Do you do 7 different topics and try to wrong-foot your opponent, or do you try and stick to the same topic and dig deeper and deeper? And we're about to go now. If you have sent your question in, please don't forget to say where you're from as well, but we're going to PMQs now.
Absolutely.
Mr. Speaker, over the past week we've secured a historic trade deal with India and allowed